Hi, and welcome to Improved Time Off Accruals with stratustime. This webinar will be recorded and emailed to all registrants, and it will also be made available online. My name is Jennifer Spencer. I'm the Director of Marketing here at nettime Solutions, and I'm joined by Stephen Garone, who is our Technical Support Representative. In today's webinar, we'll first review the effect that overworked employees can have on your business. Then we'll dive into the differences between traditional PTO versus PTO banks, and then talk about the importance of being aware of your accrued PTO liability, which is especially of interest for those of you who are using PTO banks. We'll also examine hourly versus fixed time accruals. And then Stephen's going to take us right into stratustime and show us how you can start managing accruals and improve your processes. And we'll close with a Q&A session. So please feel free to enter your questions directly into the GoToWebinar question portal, and we'll take a look at those and answer them to the best of our ability at the end of the webinar. So you may not be aware of this, but according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, American employees are working 160 hours, or 1 full month more each year than they were 30 years ago. And in 1980, between 2 and 4% of Americans suffered from anxiety disorder, and that's according to surveys conducted by the American Psychiatric Association on mental disorders. By 2009, follow-up studies showed a dramatic rise to 49.5%. And that means 117 million US citizens have been affected by disabling anxiety at least once in their lives. So it makes us ask, why is this happening? Well, in the United States, we don't value free time and leisure as much as other cultures do. 2-hour lunches and midday siestas, weeks of paid vacations, these are things that might be cherished customs elsewhere, but they're simply not here in the United States. We work longer hours with fewer breaks than almost any other developed nation. And even industrial powerhouses like Germany and France have 35-hour work weeks, but their productivity levels are among the highest in the world. Now, also on average, people there may have lower income rates, but their standard of living and quality of life are in many ways above the US. All of this job-related stress has contributed to absenteeism, lost productivity, and health issues that are costing businesses approximately $344 billion annually. Given this information, it's no surprise that US businesses are reforming their vacation and PTO policies to better support their employees, because they realize that happy, healthy employees lower their turnover costs, and that affects their bottom line. Now, over the course of the last 10 years, companies of all sizes have been transitioning to PTO banks, which combine vacation days, sick leave, personal days, and in some cases holidays, into one lump of time that employees can use for any reason. By integrating all of these hours into one pool, employees can take days off at their discretion, with their supervisor's approval, of course, when they need them, providing employees with both flexibility and privacy. So let's take a quick poll for those of you here on the webinar. What kind of PTO system does your company use? Is it a bank-type PTO where you have a cumulative amount of PTO that employees may use as they wish? Do you have traditional PTO? So is there a specific amount of PTO that's allocated to different categories by your employer? Or do you have unlimited time off? Or is it some other system, or are you not sure? So I'm going to launch the poll. And go ahead and take a moment in your GoToWebinar control panel and answer that question. Are you bank type, traditional, unlimited, or not sure? Okay, it looks like we have all responses, and 60% of those of you on our webinar are using traditional PTO, 20% are a bank type PTO, and the other 20% are not sure. So that means none of us here today have the luxury of unlimited time off. So let's see where we all compare. According to a study from World at Work, 40% of US companies are using bank type PTO and 54% use traditional PTO. 5% use some other kind of system, and that lucky 1% have unlimited time off. Now with PTO banks, each organization may have different expectations of how employees are expected to use these PTO hours. In the United States, 100% of companies who are using PTO banks expect their employees to use PTO for vacation. 98% expect them to use PTO for personal issues. 90% expect them to use PTO when they are sick or when they're caring for someone else who is ill. 74% expect them to use PTO for conducting community service. 24% expect them to use PTO for national holidays. 11% expect them to use PTO for bereavement. And 5% expect them to use their PTO for jury duty. You might be very familiar with PTO banks and know that PTO banks can be very easy to administer. And as we've shared, they provide employees with flexibility and privacy to use their hours as they wish. But there are some potential disadvantages to PTO banks, particularly if they are poorly managed. So for starters, PTO banks may have a negative effect on a company's books. Since most states consider PTO days as vacation days, they're thereby considered an asset that is owed to an employee when he or she leaves the company. On the other hand, sick days, when kept separate, are generally speaking not considered a liability on the company books. And it's important that your company's CFO can not only quickly and easily identify the company's accrued PTO liability, but also project the company's accrued PTO liability for a given point in the future. So let's say you have 500 employees at an average pay rate of $25 per hour with an accrued PTO bank that caps at 180 hours. If you experienced a sudden loss of, say, 5% of your staff, your company would be liable for $112,500 in paid out PTO accruals. And without safeguards such as caps on PTO banks, employees have easily accrued well over the amount of cash reserves a company has had on hand. Imagine maintaining all of a company's accrued PTO the old-fashioned way, with paper and pencil. Besides obvious human error that inevitably comes with this type of tracking, it's also an extremely inefficient way for any company to be able to gauge its accrued PTO liability. The other great thing about using an automated time and attendance system with sophisticated accrual tracking is that your human resources and finance management can engage in comprehensive audits of accrued PTO usage by running month-over-month or year-over-year comparisons. And additionally, analytics can drill down into trends found within different departments, locations, and even by manager. This data provides a true insight into both a company's financial liabilities and its departmental culture. And later in our presentation, Stephen's going to show us how an automated time and attendance system like stratustime can really help you understand your own PTO liability. When it comes to accruing time off from work, regardless of whether you have bank type PTO or traditional PTO, there are two different methodologies for handling accruals: hourly accruals or fixed time accruals. So let's take a quick poll for those of you on the webinar. Which methodology does your company use? Hourly, fixed time, or are you not sure? We launch the poll here. Go ahead and answer that question in your GoToWebinar control panel. Okay, it looks like we have I think we have all the responses. 29% of you are using hourly accruals, 57% are fixed time, and 14% of you are not sure. So if you have hourly accruals, that means you're accruing paid time off by the number of hours that you worked. So for each hour an employee works, you would earn a specific amount of PTO. So for example, let's say an employee worked 40 hours per week and accrued 0.063 hours of PTO per week. He would earn around 131 hours of PTO, or 16 days. Now with fixed time accruals, you accrue paid time off by the amount of time that has passed. So for example, an employee might be hired with the agreement of receiving 10 days of paid time off in her first year. And then the employee would then accrue the same amount of hours each pay period. The employer also has the option to grant PTO in a block all at once. With fixed time accrual, an employee will receive the same amount of PTO regardless if he or she worked overtime or took a leave of absence. There are benefits to accruing paid time off both by the number of hours worked and the amount of time that has passed, but how time off is accrued depends on the needs of the industry as well as the employer. What we've experienced here is really that every organization is different, and while many of the time and attendance needs we meet are fairly standard from one company and one industry to the next, there will always be something in a payroll policy or an accrual rate that sets that company apart from others. And the great thing about time off accruals in stratustime is that the system can handle even the most complex requests with ease. So now what I'm going to do is pass the reins here over to Stephen, who's going to take us through some of the most compelling features of stratustime accruals tracking module.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to go over the features of stratustime. Okay, one of the major parts of stratustime that I think is very beneficial for most people, or for the companies that are going to use it, is that we have the ability to have a multitude of different plans to fit your company needs. So you can have it set so that you can have it set per group, even per employee if you want to have a different plan for an employee. So let's say that you have a number of people who come in, and you've started up on a contract that says that that they get a different accrual rate than the general public of your company do. You can set up a specific plan to meet those needs. So I think it's a pretty exciting. We also have an easy to follow approval workflow. What will happen is that an employee will put in a time off request, and a manager will see this basic where they can see all of their employees and the time off request that they have put in for. As you can see there, it gives you employee numbers, the name of the employee, the time that they submitted the request, the type of request that was submitted, the date and time that was requested off, the hours that were requested off, but also the balance that they currently have and the projected balance that they will have at the time that you took the time off. What we showed here is there's a little calculator under the balance, and if you clicked on that calculator, it gives you the results below, how many hours they will have as a result of the taking the time off. And then from there, it's just a simple little click on the checkbox to approve or deny that request. So you'll be able to see it. There's also a calendar view, so you can see the time on a calendar. We didn't display that here, but it is available to be able to see. So you can see if you have multiple people taking time off on the same day, so you can approve or deny based on that. Okay, our system also has the ability to accrue based on whether or not there are hours worked or time passed. So you can, like Jennifer was saying earlier, you can set up so that somebody gets a set amount of hours per pay period, per year, per day, however you want to have it calculated out, and they will get that set amount of hours regardless of the number of hours that they've worked. We also have it allowed for based upon hours worked, so that you can put in the number of hours that somebody works, then puts into a formula, and they get those number of hours out of it based upon what the accrual is set up as. And you can see here that you can set what a work year consists of, how many hours. The general 40 hours a week is about 2080, but you can put in for, if somebody only works 20 hours a week, or you can put in, if you have part-time employees and you don't want them to earn, anything over based upon if they work extra hours in a week. You have that set up there. There's also an option for no calculations. where it won't actually calculate. And that would be if there's a type of PTO that you want to allow for that, or unpaid time off that you want to allow for that can't actually, it's not going to give them any hours, but it won't take away any hours. So if they have, let's say you have a UTO policy where you just want to keep track of the days that they request off, but you don't necessarily want them to accrue those days off or owe those days off. It's just they don't get paid for those. You can use that no calculations option. Okay. And we also have a variety of reports in our system, and one of the reports allows for you to take a look at the time off information, and basically you have the choice of what format you want it in. Right now this is a screenshot of where we chose the format for Excel, so you can put it into an Excel document, and you can include the time off liability. So it'll give you the report, and it will show you what your liability would be at this point. Another benefit of using the stratustime is that you can set up your grant frequency to grant at the beginning or the end of whatever period that you want. So let's say that you want to front load your PTO. So at the beginning of the year, each employee gets 40 hours that they can use throughout the year. You could set it up so that at the beginning of that year, it will grant them those 40 hours. You can also set it up that they have to earn those hours so that it will grant them at the end of the year or the pay period or the week or the day or however you want to set up. You also have the option to pause PTO accruals. Now, pausing PTO accruals basically keeps the PTO exactly where it's supposed to be for the length of time that you determine. So if someone's, say, going on FMLA, or if they're taking some other kind of leave of absence and you don't want them to accrue time during that time, you can pause their accruals and then start it back up again when they're expected to come back. We have the feature here that we can project hours of what the employee is going to have. Now this is right here is if an employee is going to take time off, and we've chosen a date far in the future so that this particular employee, they currently have a balance of 4 hours, but they want to take a day off in August. Now in August, they're going to have 31 hours, so they'll have enough time to take off. The system does the calculations automatically, and it's based upon what they're projected to get. So it shows what their start balance is, and after they take the time off, what the end balance will be. So an employee can make sure that they're not going to go over their PTO allotment, and also so a manager can take a look to see if that's going to put them over before approving or denying the request. I think probably the best feature in stratustime, although that is subject to opinion, but is the ability to customize when you grant accruals and how often they grant. So here we have the option to do daily, weekly, per pay period, monthly, semi-annually, annually, and you can choose a custom one. And you can choose the frequency that it grants if you're going to do a custom setting. So you can have it grant every day, every week. You can have it grant every 2 weeks. You can have it grant every pay period, every 6 months, every 2 months, every 3 pay periods, whatever fun and exciting options that you have for your PTO accruals, we have the option to do that. And you can also provide a reference date. So if you wanted to grant every 3 weeks, starting from June 16th of 2002 for some reason, you can do that. Okay, so we have also in here we have anchor points that you can set up for someone's time off or for your entire the entire time off. Or you can say that where there's the adjustment anchor point where you can adjust someone's hours and say after this adjustment these hours are the exact correct value. So if at any point in time you need to go back and you want to change, say so you're changing your PTO policy where it's no longer going to accrue weekly, but now it's going to accrue monthly. It won't affect the balances at that anchor point. So you could create an anchor point, change the accrual rate, and then not have to worry about it. There's also just an anchor point that you can just put in there without an adjustment. So you can just have it go on there, and that's the correct balance as of that We also have the option of canceling requests. So this is if a request went through. Let's say that one of your employees requested to have to have Wednesday off, but it turns out that they came in to work on Wednesday and actually worked because whatever happened, that they needed to take the time off for, they no longer needed to take the time off. They could submit a cancellation request. It doesn't automatically give them the time back. It sends the request to the manager, who can then approve or deny that request. So you can make sure that you're not having any issues where someone's coming in to put in a request and then it's granted and then they cancel the request afterward. It does have to be approved by a supervisor. So as you can see from what we've gone over in stratustime here, we have a bevy of different options available to customize your PTO policy to whatever it is that you need to have. We fit your company. Your company doesn't have to fit our policies.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining NetTime Solutions for improved time off accruals with stratustime. We're going to email all of our registrants a recording of this webinar, and we'll also be providing you with a free copy of our white paper that's on time off accruals. And if you'd like to learn more about stratustime and see if it's the right automated time and attendance system for your organization, you can give us a call at 1-800-561-6366 or visit us online at nettimesolutions.com, where you can request a customized demonstration. Thanks so much for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.